Welcome back to Build Divide Worldwide. This is Jay, and today I will be talking about my Fukuoka regional experience. So, over the weekend of February 4th, I believe, we traveled up to Fukuoka, which is in western Japan, and we participated in the Regional 4 Set 7. Fukuoka is decently far from where I live, so it took me probably a 2-hour train onto an hour and a half. The day we arrived, we got off the airplane, took a taxi to our hotel, dropped off our stuff, and went out for dinner. There are some really good night stalls and food trucks around this river area, so we went and checked that out. Sat down at a couple food stalls, ate some really good Japanese food, got some crepes afterwards, listened to some live music. It was overall a pretty good night, and afterwards we went back to the hotel and started preparing for the tournament the next morning. The deck I was running was Black and Blue Iora. I felt that this deck was the strongest control deck in the meta and that had come out in the game so far, and I do like playing control. It's a little difficult in Build Divide because of how much RNG there is in the life system, but I did my best. I ran 47 cards in my list, both Iora Aces at 4 each, and the only other units I ran in the deck were Erara, the 3-cost buster that turns into a 7/5 decoy if there's 15 cards or more in your grave, which I found invaluable in that deck, as well as Arumeru, a 3/5 3-drop dual color that you could ditch spells to buff her by 2k. Very powerful card. Other than that, I ran all spells to buff, control, draw, and kill things that my opponent plays. The game plan was basically to drop a 3-drop turn 1, keep mana up to protect it until I can play my ace, and the ace, if it gets destroyed, I can discard a command to put her back on the field rested. So she sticks around really well. And then the buster spell Excavation that lets me check the top 3 of my deck. Any spells get put into my hand, and since I'm running the blue-black territory, I get to activate the second effect, which minuses 2k to any unit on my opponent's board for how many cards are in my hand. The deck is basically just a rinse and repeat. Take control of the field until your opponent runs out of cards, and then overrun them, which I had happened multiple times. So on to my first match. I versed Iris, and I got really unlucky because I only run 4 pure white cards in my deck, the 3k buff and the remove from grave, but I started with both whites in my energy zone, which put me very far behind. I didn't draw my ace, and I had 3 busters in my life. So my opponent, as Iris usually does, was playing the control matchup as well, where she used the territory where you can cast side cards for free that are underneath your rested units at the end of turn. But I felt like my control was way stronger, and I ended up coming back 1 life to 10. So he hit me to 1 life, and I just stabilized mid-match and came back and dealt 10 straight damage to him and won the match, which is what my deck usually should do. I just need to figure out a way to make the early game stronger and more consistent, because the late game is super powerful. It's almost impossible to win against this deck late game, I feel. My round 2 was against Rebecca, my worst matchup in my opinion. She rushed me down with all of her weenie units while shooting my Iora. She can actually remove Iora with the 10k damage from the territory, removes her from the game, so she kept removing all of my Ioras, which puts me in a very difficult spot. And the one fatal turn is when she was swinging for game. I didn't manage my mana well enough, and I didn't have a black mana to play my kill spell, and I lost that match because of it. Unfortunate. Round 3 was against Lionel, which I have a very strong matchup against, except for 1 card. And you guessed it, it's Badgertos. Because none of my spells can target him. The only thing in my deck that can kill Badgertos is the Buster Totem spell that turns my territory into a 13k unit. But I only run one of it in the deck because I felt like it wasn't as important, and the only card that I was scared of is Badgertos, but maybe I was wrong. So Badgertos proceeded to 3-hit me for game because I had 4 busters in my life, and Badgertos in the Lionel deck does 3 hits after 8 mana, and I lost. It was pretty rough, honestly. Fourth match, round 4, was against Blue Iora, copy spell territory. It was a very back and forth matchup. I found it very interesting that when I went to use the salvage 2, he would double cast the white removal spell and remove both of my targets, which was very oppressive. But I run 4 of the card and he couldn't keep up with my control. I would just keep salvaging all my units back, drawing, controlling the units he played, and I decked him out actually. And I won the match. It almost went to time as well. The next match was probably my most difficult match. Round 5 was against Mill Ishtar. I didn't realize that it was Mill Ishtar until halfway through the match, and he flipped his territory. I had no idea. I just thought it was the normal Ishtar territory, and I was like, oh, I have a good matchup against this. But it turned out that I was up like 10 life to his 3 or 4, and he just started killing my Iora, and I kept reviving her, and every time I would lose a life because of the territory. We actually went to time, and neither one of us had won the match, and according to the rules, it's a double loss. So it doesn't go to who's got more life at the end. You just both lose. So that was very unfortunate. We both were decked out and we both had no life. So one or two more turns would have definitely ended it for sure, but we just both got a double loss. Round 6 was against Red Melissa. I underestimated the buffs that Melissa could put out because she can buff by 5k twice each turn. And the 4-cost Melissa Ace, if she's buffed over 5k, she can't be targeted by spells, which I didn't realize actually because it never came up before. But the deck runs out of units and steam very quickly, and my deck hit its late game stride. I came back 0 life to 10, and I ended up winning the match because of Erara. Erara's 7-5 decoy is the reason I won that match. He would use his buffs, kill my decoys, I would salvage 2, bring both of them back, and put them back on the field. So there was not much he could do with the decoys and my control in hand. Round 7 was against Red Badgertos. And again, Badgertos can't be targeted, summoning the dinosaur that can't be targeted as well, and the other dinosaur that puts all my 5 costs into energy. Really was a rough fight, and I just slowly died against the deck because I couldn't stabilize. So overall, I had a pretty unfortunate score. I thought the deck was really strong, and I am really proud of it. The meta just has so much variety in it that I feel like control decks can't really control everything. You just always have some decks that will just rush you down. You'll have bad luck with your busters, but like my deck really shines when it hits its late game stride because nobody can come back from late game like that, like this deck can. I feel like the other weakness of this deck is in the fact that excavation, if you target a unit, you have to choose your targets beforehand. So if you choose to activate both of the effects on the card, the top check 3 and the negative 2k per card in your hand, if the unit you targeted gets removed from the field by like an effect like Margreta, or they kill it themselves somehow, the whole card gets cancelled, which is a very important mechanic and could make or break that deck. So you got to be very careful with that. Overall, Fukuoka was a great experience. This is the second time I've participated in the Fukuoka tournaments, Josh and I are planning to see about going to the Tokyo regional next month. We will make more content towards that in the future. Thank you for coming back to our channel, and see you next time.